Ahoy there, me hearties. Ahoy there, me hearties. Welcome to
Shiver my
Timbers. Welcome to We Have Ways of Making You Sail special with me, Al Murray, and James Holland, of course. And James, I mean, the chuckles and levity, because we are nevertheless somewhere very serious and heavyweight. And
yeah, we are.
This is absolutely extraordinary where we are, and the things we have seen before already before we get to talk about things we're going to talk about. So, Jim, explain where we are and who we're with.
Okay, so we're at the Naval Historical Branch in the historic dockyard in Portsmouth with my old pal Steve Prince, and Steve and I go back a fair old way now, it has to be said, to I think a battlefield tour in northern Italy at one point on the Gothic line. And we kept in touch ever since, and I've been down here researching loads of times, and it's absolutely one of my favourite places to come and visit, because just getting here, I mean, outside we've got both modern aircraft carriers, we've got Victory, we've got Mary Rose,
Certainly,
we've got the Warrior,
we wandered up from the gates, as we wandered up from the gates, you know, and you sign in at the guardroom or whatever. What's the naval equivalent of a guardroom? I don't know. It'll do. We sign in at the guardroom, and there are there's the two aircraft carriers, and it's very rare to get the pair.
Oh, they're both in today.
Yeah, quite extraordinary. But Steve, how long have you worked here?
So I have worked here since 2001.
Right.
So I'm a very long-term inmate of Naval Historical Branch.
Is there a file on you yet? Have you been here that long?
Absolutely, yeah. But I know where it is, and I'm not going to let anybody else see it. So.
But Steve attended what used to be the Imperial War College.
So, yeah, I was very fortunate a couple of years ago that I got to go to the Royal College of Defence Studies, which was the Imperial Defence College.
Back in the day, which is up in
Belgrave Square.
Belgrave Square, and it's a super duper thing, and it's where generals go and admirals go and all the rest of it. So you're now equivalent in rank to
a captain, but equivalence is a very old thing, so I wouldn't
a
worry
naval
about
captain.
that. Yeah.
So in charge of things, unlike an army captain.
Yeah. You might say that.
but anyway, what I'm really stressing, Steve, is that you've got proper creds.
Well, you might. Fine, that's very kind of you to say so, mate. But it's a really interesting job, because it is a straddle between history, professional historian, and policy advice, which is what I'm here for. And so the branch was established as part of Churchill taking over the Admiralty in 1911. So establishment of the naval staff, and as part of that, he insisted on there being a historical branch.
Churchill loves history.
He does. And your job is to be the kind of stock of argument and evidence to effectively stress test whatever we're doing today. So a lot of my job is red teaming current defence policy, current plans, logic testing it, historical precedent.
To have been a fly on the wall here 40 years ago with the Falklands going on.
Absolutely. And interesting enough, one of my predecessor, David Brown, the late David Brown, was the guy who kept the war diary for the Falklands War.
Gosh.
In London.
But Steve, you also name ships, don't you?
Only the Queen names ships.
Well, I know, but you know what I mean. But you advise
I help
strongly.
recommend the names that go up through the First Sea Lord and are then submitted to the Queen.
So is there a post-it note on your desk with names for ships? Possible names for ships.
It's been fun. Though, of course, the thing Al, we should say, has seen here today is the badge for HMS Murray.
I know. What a thing. I had no idea. I'm thinking I might adopt that as a personal crest. I think
we could, get you a copy of that.
That would be brilliant. So what's here at the historical branch then? So if it's contemporary, so there's some locked door with a list of all the secrets that we must never know, but then there's also, because we're going to get to it in a minute, because on the desk we have these extraordinary documents with us. What else is in the archive here?
So effectively, the job of the archive is a living archive. So every month the archive is growing, and that is what the Royal Navy, be it ships, be it commando forces, be it submarines, are out doing around the world. So their reporting comes back to the branch. And I've got a very good curator, Kate Brett, who then looks after, curates, sorts it all archivally. And that becomes the kind of the memory, the institutional memory for policy making, for legal disclosure, all of that. And we will hang on to most of that for 20 to 30 years, and then the majority of it will go to the National Archive at Kew. Right. Some things will be retained for security, or because Kew only takes a small fraction of the information that's created, more and more of it, the rest of it, will then stay with us. And that's why you've got some sources you saw, particularly today in the library, that you're going back several hundred years.
Yeah.
And some of the documents, particularly where either Q didn't want them or where we're on, Q's got a copy and we've got a copy of many documents relating particularly to the First and the Second World War.
Yeah.
But Steve, I mean, one of the concerns about sort of modern times is that everything's digitized and it's all on email and it's all, there's no sort of paper copy. So how do you store current naval records?
So it is a huge electronic effort. And we're absolutely, so very heavily committed to that and to security and to IT at the different levels of security in order to make it work. But as one of my colleagues used to say before he retired, paper doesn't crash. So the really important documents we will still retain in hard copy.
And print off.
Yeah.
I mean, you're unique in the fact that you're both an archive and an open and an ongoing archival. Because very often you think of things as being detached from the thing that they're a history of, if you will, that you're feeding directly into the archive, and there's no mediation. There's no that's quite peculiar, isn't it?
It might not be unique, but it's pretty rare. And I guess air historical is the closest equivalent.
But there's no army historical.
There is an army historical branch. It's gone under other names. But absolutely, we probably do the most intimate with the naval staff and advice, I think.
I mean, after all, the Army's got its issue of regiments and stuff anyway, that it's sort of fractalised in that respect, whereas the Navy doesn't.
No, we don't have quite the same. There are the different tribes, and of course you've got the submarine service, the fleet air arm, that sort of thing, but it's not nearly as
and then marine
hard
commandos
cast.
and all this.
Yeah, exactly. The different fighting arms, but it's not like the Army with the regimental system.
Yeah, which gets reformed every 3/4 of an hour anyway, so God knows how they keep track of it all. So, I mean, the things we've seen. I mean, we went beyond a door that said no mobile phones, no photography, which
so we left those
given
behind.
some of the young people who work on this podcast was a bit of a wrench. And we've seen extraordinary stuff through those doors, haven't we, Jim?
Yeah, it's amazing. It's a if you're a history nut at all, this is an absolute Aladdin's cave, isn't it? You open those doors and then it is like you were saying, Steve, it's a bit like the last scene of Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Well,
and it is a bit because you've just got row upon row.
Well,
upon
the first
row.
room we walked into, the shelves there's boxes, long box files which contain every ship, as far as I could tell. And
Since the war.
And there were 8 Ark Royal boxes in a row. And that's the depth of the stuff here, right?
And then there's huge shelves with just sort of medical journals and
RFA logs
Yep.
and Admiralty fleet orders. So one of the other things you've got here is you've got the operational records, some of the policy records. The key stuff will go to Q, or we'll keep copies of it. But you'll also have things like the Admiralty fleet orders. Yeah. So you've got the stuff that you need to kind of try and help interpret the past.
Yeah.
And therefore make sense of perhaps why one person was promoted and another one wasn't. You could perhaps look at the Admiralty Fleet order and go, oh, okay, if you were over a certain age, that would explain why.
Yeah.
Or who was eligible for a course, or how things were determined.
Yeah. I mean, I said to you, Steve, didn't I, that, if one was to want to do a new history of the Battle of the Atlantic War in the Second World War, could you kind of sort of plonk yourself here for a month and do it? And you said yes.
I think I may have bought myself a new resident for a month. Absolutely.
Maybe.
I think this could be one of the centres in the world that you could do it from. The thing about the Battle of the Atlantic, we're going to talk about it as we have Waves Fest, is it is just such an international story.
Yes.
That I think it's very hard to do it from one national archive. But I think because the Battle of the Atlantic was so central for Britain, and the organisation of national, international, neutral resources, this would probably be, a really good place to start.
And I mean, I've been here before and looked at German U-boat stuff and U-boat logs and all sorts of bits and pieces, and there's all sorts of Admiralty records.
Yes, how much of it's stolen? That's that's what James is trying to ask.
Yeah. So I think there is a certain amount that is prizes of war.
Yeah. Okay. Fine.
Let's put it across like that. But what you have had, so say with the German records, is you then had subsequently kind of joint copying projects. So that both the originating country and the capturing country have been left with copies.
Yeah.
So that was the sort of the modus that allowed everybody to be happy at the end of the
course,
game.
yeah.
But it was really important things for the Admiralty, like trying to investigate U-boats to try and work out what had been effective in the Second World War.
Yeah.
You're trying to work out what actually killed the U-boat. Was it a mine? Was it an aircraft? Was it ships? What combination? Because that was helping to determine what choices you're making in technology and investment going forward.
Yeah, well, which speaks to how this isn't, it's not just historical is an interesting word in this context. It makes you think it's maybe adjacent to a museum, but it isn't. It's an ongoing resource for the institution that it's a part
so
of.
absolutely, I see my job. I'm one of the assistant directors of the naval staff.
Yeah.
And I'm the head of the Naval Historical Branch, not the other way round.
Yeah.
Because it's the naval staff that should drive my business and drives the internal role for me. Now, I think what that means is, and I say to my team, a lot of it is we are trying to ensure that the right stuff is captured at the point of when it happens contemporaneously, because that's going to secure the best long-term historical record for everybody else down the line.
But I've always kind of thought, people say to you, what's the point of studying history? Well, the point of studying history is so that you can make sense of the present and prepare for the future, and that's embodied here, isn't it?
Yeah, that's the essence of my job. If I'm not doing that, then there's
But away
a
from
question mark.
Away from a bit the big campaigns or the Battle of the Atlantic. If your grandpa is a rating, who served on, you think, HMS Bellerophon or whatever,
HMS Murray.
Or HMS Murray, can you find him here?
You can't, because the personnel records would still be through Q, or if they're retained, depending on the DPA.
But let's say
But what you could do is, once you've got that record, or with what you've got,
you could illuminate it.
Exactly. Yeah, we could try and unpack it for you.
So
and make sense of
you'd
it.
go get the ship file out. You'd get the Admiralty fleet orders from the year the campaign you're looking at, and you'd be able to create a context in which that rating was living and working and fighting.
Absolutely. And one of the things I'm aware, so the branch is set up where we can have public access. You've got to kind of pre-book it, but we're not set up primarily for the public. So the way I'm kind of trying to square that circle is, as far as possible, you're trying to get the guides that will help people make sense of it, and as much of the main primary material online, so that it's a kind of self-help as far as possible, but then absolutely we will help when required.
But just to be clear, not every ship's log is retained.
No, so let's take the example of the Second World War. So
let's say HMS Kelly, for example.
So in the 1950s, pretty much every ship's log was pulped below cruiser level, because there was a view taken, it seems amazing to us, that you didn't need them anymore. Who would be interested?
Steve, to the uninitiated, it goes aircraft carrier, battleship,
cruiser. So all the ones that you're
Heavy
looking
and light.
at are things like destroyers, frigates, corvettes, compass rose. Right. Strangely, submarines were retained.
Yeah,
right.
But
so if you look at HMS Upholder, for example,
but that's because they want to know what's gone on the submarines. Not only do you don't just want to know how to take out submarines. You want to know how to operate them as well, because that's very much the direction of travel in the
so it's becoming a more significant weapon.
So right, yes, because I think if we were to go out to the street and say, what's the difference between a destroyer and a frigate, people might not know. And let alone what's bigger, a cruiser or but that. So everything below cruiser.
Yeah. So the cruisers, which are 7, 8, 10,000 tons, sort of. Yeah, your HMS Belfast, they're retained, but anything smaller than that. So as you say, HMS Kelly, so Mountbatten ship, that wouldn't have been retained.
I mean, isn't that just extraordinary? I mean, I find
incredible.
HMS Mary, that was a destroyer, wasn't it?
Destroyer. So basically, all the ships that do the spade work in the Battle of the Atlantic.
It's just. Oh my God, it's unbelievable. Every time I think about it, it just makes me want to.
I mean, it's just.
But how many were there? How much bigger archive would you need if you retained all
that many?
And it is
100 or so.
What ships?
Well, 200 destroyers in the Second World War.
Oh no! I mean, you're looking at a stage where you have somewhere over 400 or 500 destroyers, frigates, corvettes, each producing a ship's log every month.
Yeah, I know, but.
You're going to need a bigger boat.
Yeah.
You've retained all those, medical journals.
I think the thing is, it depends on,
Not you,
and this is the problem that once you've lost it, the decision to get rid of it only has to be made once. The decision to retain it has to be an unbroken chain.
Yes. Yeah. This is like the BBC wiping Doctor Who.
Yes.
Isn't it?
Or get ready to go.
No one thought anyone was ever going to want to watch it in 40 years' time. So it's that.
Well, it's also the BBC getting rid of Colour Sergeant Bourne.
Right, exactly.
When he was interviewed in the 1930s.
I remember talking to people at the IWM who said
Drift.
almost this idea that once the official histories were written, that would kind of be it for the Second World War.
Yeah.
You know, well, you got the OH, that'll tell you the answer. What else is there to do with it?
Yeah.
It does seem extraordinary to us now, but I think and I guess it just depends on, the cost reward seen at the time, and is it your main business? So one of the other things that for me in the Navy, I am the advocate for records. If you've got someone, so I will speak to, or one of my guys will speak to, every ship CO course going through, every junior RN staff course, to get across to them why you do this and why it will matter in the future.
Yeah.
Because if they're convinced, that makes a real sort of step change in what's likely to be included and survive.
God, I mean, it's so interesting, the idea of it, an archive, that's alive and that is an existing resource rather than something for historians to use to write books with or PhDs with. It's
that's secondary for me.
Yeah. No, but it's very interesting to encounter a thing that's that way round.
Yeah.
Right now, what have we got here on the table in front of us then? Because these are.
We were talking about this earlier on. So, and it's a really interesting story. So I was already thinking about this, and we'd already done some of the digitalisation. But a bit of this is driven by the We Have Ways Fest. And talking to people in the margins, many of whom want to know all sorts of issues history, but there's always going to be an issue with access to resources, getting to the Public Record Office at Kew, etc. So one of the things we'd already determined on, but we're having another push on, and we're intending to have up online before the end of the year, is the Admiralty War Diary. And we've got some volumes of it here. So it's, I think, 203 volumes compiled. Some were over 50,000 pages. And the great thing now is digitalisation has moved on, both in technology and cost, to the point where this has been able to done, at a pretty modest price. And then behind this, we're looking at the 4 volumes of Stephen Roskill's official history of the war at sea in the Second World War, and Susan Berren's, and you talked about it before, Merchant Shipping and the Demands of War, to get them all digitalised. So because digitalisation is a form of democratisation, and it is available for people, with an internet connection, but at no cost.
Yes, because trust me, getting a copy now of Merchant Shipping and Demands of War will cost you a pretty packet.
Yeah. So it will have been a limited print run in the 1950s. You can go through the
library
system.
It would be like
great.
2,500 or something like that. I mean, they're not.
Yeah, it'll be in the low thousands.
Yeah,
blimey.
And that's it.
So the sources that I think I can get out there, and the Admiralty War Diary, 50,000 pages, but we had a go at getting it up a couple of years ago, and just the technology and the website wasn't quite there. So we're working on it now. And so I was saying to the team, what can I say on the podcast? And they absolutely assured me, end of the year.
Right.
Before the end of the year.
But it has all been digitised already. So it's
now
it's not that it's got to be digitised, it's just the process of getting it so that the public can access it in a user-friendly and easy-to-see way.
Yeah.
How many copies of this are there?
So there are 2 copies, one at Kew and one here.
Right.
Of the Admiralty War
And they're all
Diary.
typed up, and they're all typed up in Courier on a typewriter, aren't they? And
So I mean, a diary is a kind of interesting term. And if you look in the front of number 1, you will see the sort of missive that is given to the Admiralty right at the beginning of the war.
War Diary, Admiralty. Note, the War Diary was established in accordance with a letter of 15th September 1939, C. Longhurst, Cabinet Offices, at the request of Sir Edward Bridges to Captain E.D.B. McCarthy, RN DTSD, with regard to arrangements for keeping a diary to provide the groundwork of an official history. Copy attached in brackets.
So effectively, right at the beginning of the Second World War, they are saying, I know this isn't your main business, guys, but can you start thinking about systematically hanging on to a diary and the documents?
Sorry, go on, you say.
Dear McCarthy, at the request of Bridges, I enclose a draft of a letter for any observation you may wish to make. Subject to the approval of the Chairman of the Control of Official History Subcommittee, he proposes sending it to the permanent head of all departments concerned. Yours sincerely, signed C. Longhurst. So there's the...
So the interesting about this is actually, you were saying, it's an operational archive and the historical is incidental in a sense.
Yes.
Whereas this, at the beginning of World War II, they're putting the historical record up front
Yeah.
to collect it as the driver. But during the war, what is plain is that for the Admiralty, this then becomes a really important, source of keeping track of a worldwide war.
Yep.
And effectively, there is a version of this done today. So at Northwood, you will have the Duty Fleet Commander who will be there, the kind of desk officer for things going on around the world, and collecting documents or writing up what's happening during the day. And these are the things you then hand over at the end of your shift to the next guy or girl coming behind you.
So this is happening at the Admiralty in Whitehall.
Yeah.
There's
Because
some
the
desk,
Admiralty...
So there's a desk clerk, is it? He's putting this together.
So this will be multiple
Who decides
people.
what goes in?
So you will have probably a commander or a captain who is on watch, who is effectively running that, but with a team below them, mixed naval and civil servant. And though it's called a diary, much of it is a diary, but also a compilation of kind of key signals or documents. And the main reason day to day they're running it beyond the historical is that when I then come in to take over my shift in the operations room, I can use that to situate what's going on. And when a question comes up from the First Sea Lord or ministers, I can look back and go, this is what happened 2 days ago, and that is why this ship is at this particular location, and that's why we took risk on her fuel in order to get her there quickly enough, and that's now a problem.
So what day are you looking at the moment, Al?
Well, this actually goes back into August, interestingly. So
it looks like they've retrospectively...
They've done a little bit of retrospective.
Because they all know what's coming. And,
so you know how you ended up where you got to, I suppose, by whenever they start this. But for instance, 28th of August 1939, foreign stations, Mediterranean, withdrawal of destroyers, possibility of enemy submarines operating in South Atlantic, essential to have some destroyers there, regret necessary to provide this force at your expense to make up in time for withdrawal of 4th Division from Eastern Mediterranean. A division from China is to join C&C East Indies to relieve one of the half flotillas now there, HMS Kelly being sent to you. There you go.
The aforementioned.
First Sea Lord, and that's, I think, is an order 1722/28. So, I mean...
So this is live what is happening, and the difference between the Admiralty and the War Office and the Air Ministry is the Admiralty is an operational HQ.
Yeah.
So whereas the Army and the Air Force are allocating chunks of forces to theatre commanders like Middle East or Far East, and they are then getting on with their resources within theatre, the difference for the Admiralty is you are constantly in real time moving assets between the different commands.
Got you.
Reallocating. And I guess then the ultimate example of that as the war goes on is Force H based on Gibraltar, which is able to pivot, into the Mediterranean or back out into the Atlantic as required.
Gosh. And this is absolutely, it's more than a page a day. So, but it is.
And what sort of things are they putting in there? I mean, give me an example.
Well, okay. This is the 20th of September 39, which was a Wednesday. Home commands, U-27 destroyed. M.010992/39. So
signal reference.
That's the German submarine U-27 destruction of information gained from survivors. Submarine U-27 sunk in position 185 longitude. I think I'm not very good at reading these. Having been attacked by HMS Fortune, am picking up survivors. So this is the signal. Am picking up survivors. This is the captain. No preliminary interrogation of survivors to be carried out, etc. C&C Home Fleet 0550/20. Intend sending feelers to Kirkwall with prisoners, 6 officers, 32 men, apparently whole crew. So absolutely, that's fine point detail of what's gone on.
And what you'll find, of course, is the diary as the sort of the number of staff and the multiplicity of theatres. And plus they get very good at doing it to a standard format.
Yeah.
It's getting thicker and thicker as the war goes on.
But as a footnote to all that, so time of arrival of prisoners at Euston, right? So it goes all the way through to them coming down to Euston from your side. But magnetic pistols, U-39 and U-27's attacks on HM ships, unreliability of magnetic pistols. So
there's key kind of operational information to know in kind of real time.
And then the next thing, there's a ship arriving from the Baltic. I mean, it's
Magnetic pistols not working properly is something that haunts every navy in the world.
Because it's a great technology, but it's fragile.
But it's fragile, and it's sort of slightly being hustled into service before it's slightly ready.
Yes. Yeah, there's elements of that as things accelerate. And what I find fascinating about this is you and we've got some volumes up, and you'll find Dunkirk or Sicily or anything, but you'll also see, commander and captain need to be allocated to embargo control in Istanbul.
Yeah.
For the control of raw materials and licensing. So I think the diary and the official histories, the thing that I find fascinating and essential about them is, unlike most authors, they don't get to choose their topic. Most of us will follow something we're interested in.
Right.
These are much closer to reflecting the totality of the war, and all the paths not travelled, all we think there's, the things that we were worried about for a few days, then they don't come to pass, then they fall back out.
But the headings here for the 28th of September 39 make your point. So, Humber Force composition, enemy flying boat, anti-aircraft training, fleet defence against aircraft, home forces, and then Humber Force again, Northern Patrol, aircraft reconnaissance casualties, western approaches, enemy SM reported, one observed in the afternoon.
So these are all the naval commanders.
These are all the headings. Yeah. Enemy ships
attacked,
MV sinkings, foreign stations, and that's the 28th of September 1939. When things aren't really underway yet. It's incredible.
And of course, by getting it all in, they're also looking to establish patterns. That's the key thing about having this single linear run of information. Yeah. And what you would have had is also, you'll see as the war goes on, there are more and more signals kind of interleaved, but there will also have been massive files of signals that you can then, if you're interested in something or you think it might indicate, you can then, that's your reference to go to a signal file to read the full story.
Yes, the Gruff Spey is here, sort of as an addition. They think they've SS Clements 75 southeast of Pernambuco by gunfire raider Admiral Scheer, and then someone's corrected it as the Gruff Spey.
Because she went round in disguise. Yeah, changing her identity.
Yeah, and then handwritten in at 1430. I mean, this is absolutely amazing. Well, that's just one volume from the start of the war.
It's volume one, in fact.
It's volume one. It's just one volume.
You haven't got out of September 1939 yet. There's a long way to go.
So we're going to take a very brief break and return with more. We pulled some volumes out kind of at random.
But just happened to be key moments in naval history in the Second World War.
Just the Bismarck and all that. Anyway, so we'll get to those in a moment. Join us after the break.
This week on Battleground, a former Special Forces operator reveals his team's dramatic infiltration of the Falkland Islands.
We went in as a fighting patrol because we didn't know what we were going to hit. We didn't know what was on the ground. I had a pistol, an L-42 sniper weapon, and I had an AR-16. I mean, we had grenades, ammunition, magazines coming out far too heavy for a reconnaissance patrol. We just didn't know what we were going to hit. Once that first mission was finished, we realised that, as with ops in Ireland that we've done, the IRA or the Argentine were not behind every corner, because that's what we thought, because we were going into sort of some delicate areas.
Battleground, the Falklands War. Find a link in the episode notes or search Battleground wherever you get your podcasts.
Welcome back to We Have Ways of Making You Talk, Barnacle edition, with me, Al Murray, James Holland, and Steve Prince. And we've lowered our leaded string deep into the fathom depths of the Naval Archive.
Very good.
Oh, God, we should do this podcasting more often. So what did we pick out?
Well, we picked out Dynamo, didn't we?
Yeah, there it is. So do you want to have a peruse, Jim?
So this is the bit.
Well, no, it's not. But the thing is, you say we picked out Dynamo. We didn't. We picked out
Volume 14.
Volume 14, which is when Dynamo's happening. So it's also going to have new shoelaces needed in Gibraltar, and so on.
Yeah. So this. I mean, basically, each of these volumes seems to cover kind of 10 days to 2 weeks, something like that.
That's what we get into. Yeah.
So this is the 17th to the 31st of May, 1940. So 17th of May, it's that's 2 days after Reynaud, the French Prime Minister's rung up Churchill and said, we've lost the battle.
Yes, it's the excrement and the air conditioning system becoming acquainted with one another at this point, aren't they?
Yes,
basically.
they are. Situation report. Home, mining. Mines are still being cut and detonated in the Tyne area. And also in the Yarmouth area, and a magnetic mine in the Forth. New cruisers, Fiji and Bonaventure are now in commission. Well, that's good news. Then there's Low Countries, 5 refugee ships left Ostend at 1600 hours on the 17th. There's no further news of them yet. Norway, of course, that's still going on.
Yeah.
Let me not forget. Casualties, the Effingham grounded at 1750 on the 17th was badly holed and is a total loss.
Gosh.
Resolution hit by a bomb, slightly damaged. Convoy attacked. 3 Hudson aircraft carried out a bombing attack on a convoy of 7 ships with destroyer escort, 10 miles west of the Lister.
What's the Effingham? Is she a frigate cruiser?
She's a destroyer.
Right, so we can't go and look. We can't go and look her up because she got pulped.
But there's an air raid on Stavanger.
Yeah.
A successful air raid was carried out at 0145 on the 17th on Stavanger Aerodrome. 1 hangar and runway is being damaged. Blah blah blah. Wireless telegraphy intercepts showed that 2 groups of enemy aircraft, estimated to number 30 aircraft, were operating off the Norwegian coast. Then there's Iceland. The troop convoy arrived at Reykjavik at 1200 hours on the 17th. Blah, blah, blah.
So that's probably Canadians coming over at that stage.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yes, it is. Yeah, of course. And then situation reports, foreign stations, radar, Italian situation, enemy air activity, precautions and the home commands, River Clyde Home Security, cruisers at Nor obviously being a command, Wick Airdrome. Wick, obviously, that's Wick and Drem, isn't it? Wick's there, Scotland. Lowestoft, Jersey Airport. God, it's amazing. I mean, submarines. So there's all these different headings. We're still on page 4. We're still on the 17th.
And so one of the things they definitely get into is you've got to have, like most staff work, you've got to have a format.
Yeah.
However pressing any particular issue is, you've got to keep it in a format that will allow you to logically and easily find the information again.
Yeah, of course. And dividing it up into sort of manageable portions, I suppose.
Yep.
Yes.
I find this out because
Operations Belgian coast, Operations Dutch warships. Dutch authorities, because don't forget Dutch are out by now. They surrender on the 15th. Rotterdam's on the 14th, isn't it?
Yeah, as early as that. Yep.
Yeah, refugees. Of the 300,000 refugees the French wish to evacuate from Belgium, 100,000 will be brought to Folkestone and Southampton, and 200,000 to French West Coast ports. 2 railway steamers are already working from Zeebrugge and Ostend. I mean, it's just amazing, isn't it? So they're already kind of, you're getting this picture of a navy that is already pretty stretched. You've got home commands. You've got Norway,
And that's, I think, because you've got Norway going
got
simultaneously.
Low Countries.
yeah, I mean, but this is all around the British Isles, isn't it? Essentially, at the moment, we haven't got to the
So
rest
Italy
of the
hasn't
world
entered the
picture.
war.
Yeah,
And just in case you haven't got enough to think about, Norway, Narvik, swordfish refueling. Swordfish may require refueling landing ground near Porsanger or Varanger fjords. Confirm that Bannock available.
so get on that, Jenkins.
And here we are. We're
sir.
still on the 17th. Operations Dutch warships, Norway, Narvik, AA defence, trawlers, enterprise, blah, blah, blah. Here we are on another day.
And I mean, this is in the middle
Another
of
page
we talked
robber.
about it, the strategic earthquake.
Yeah.
So all the things
Yes.
that never came to pass in the First World War are coming to pass.
Yeah.
In real time for them.
Yeah,
Wow, there is a lot. I'm still on. It's
still on the 17th.
It's like 9 pages or something. 10 pages. Convoy attacked. MV hit. Aircraft reports. Casualties and defects. So the casualties are always at the end, aren't they? No. Foreign stations. North Atlantic, South Atlantic,
Yes.
South Atlantic, Mediterranean. Holy
Yeah,
moly.
here comes your bigger picture.
Yeah. American and West Indies, Australia, China.
And that's the thing, you've got so many other theatres where you've got normal business going on and where you've got Cold Wars that could go hot any time.
Yeah.
So let's fast forward to the 26th. That is the launch. Well, in the afternoon is when Dynamo is put into action. Of course, nothing actually happens until the 27th. Yeah, here we are. Here's the 26th.
Situation report. Dover and Portsmouth.
Yeah, so don't forget this is
Closed.
presumably this is all being written up at the time, so this hasn't.
So yeah, almost.
We haven't
a bit-
gone into Dynamo
Perhaps
yet.
almost the closest thing is like a newspaper.
Yeah.
So you're going to get it very slightly in
Yeah.
arrears
Yeah.
of real time most of the time.
Yeah, so this is the end of the road for Calais on Sunday, the 26th of May. This is when the garrison there surrenders eventually.
Operation
Operation
Dynamo,
Dynamo,
but
here we
written
are.
in pen. You see that? So it's a correction. The Dynamo there is a correction. What's been crossed out?
No, Dynamo. I can see it.
He's crossed it out. He's crossed out Dynamo and then written Dynamo in again.
Yeah.
And there's a.
They keep doing it. I
keep
don't
doing
know
it.
why. Because
Perhaps
they're
they had a
writing
wobble
Maybe
about
there was a
what-
question mark about
calling
I
it
mean,
that.
real time. Maybe they're like, oh, I think it's called Dynamo.
Oh,
but
I
I'm
know
not
what
quite
would have
sure.
happened. They'd have put it in, and then that might not be the code name, so we're going to cross it out, and then it's been added in subsequently because it is Dynamo.
So it's probably been confirmed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there's a thing happening in
so-
in as real time as it possibly could.
To commence covering forces. Operation Dynamo is to commence Admiralty to VA Dover 1857 on the 26th.
Yeah. So that's Ramsey, VA Dover.
Yes, it's-
Vice Admiral Dover.
Yes, because it was actually from the top, it was, 25 past 6 is when it was put in, yeah. So
All available forces to be used.
for covering Operation Dynamo tonight, Sunday. And so the Nor Command, Admiralty to Commander-in-Chief, Nor Command, 1937. Operation Dynamo will be conducted by Vice Admiral Dover starting tonight, 26th. Very large number of small vessels required. But don't forget, that hasn't been put out yet to the public.
No. But that's what they're thinking they're going to need to do.
That's what they're thinking they're going to do. Yep. Because they haven't got they haven't got the East Mole at that point.
Yeah.
Which they can put. So the whole problem about Dynamo is how do you get the men onto the ships?
Yes, it's the interface.
Exactly. So the whole point about the small ships is to shuttle the men from the beaches to the big ships. What transforms Dynamo is the discovery that there is this East Mole, which is this lattice work wooden structure on concrete piles. I think it's concrete piles, stretching out 3/4 of a mile out of the edge of the eastern side of the harbour entrance of Dunkirk, because the main quaysides and docks are all a mile or so inside Dunkirk town.
Yeah.
So this is the absolute outer perimeter bit. But on the top of this East Mole, there is this wooden walkway. And what is not certain is whether you can actually
come alongside. Use that. Yeah.
Yes. Now, if I remember rightly, Bill Tennant gets summoned on that Sunday and doesn't get out until around 5 o'clock on HMS Wolfhound on Monday the 27th, which is why there's only 7,669 evacuated on the Monday, because they're still
System
shuttling
isn't
them out
running.
of the beaches,
Yeah,
out of
that's
these
right.
little boats and lighters and that kind of thing, and barges and rowboats and lifeboats and this sort of thing. That is how they're shuttling people back and forth. But Tennant gets told about this soon after his arrival. And by about, I think it's about 9 o'clock that night, someone said, hang on a minute, this might work. And they get isn't it the Bell of the Channel or something like that? It's
Jim, don't ask Steve. It's in the book.
We'll look at the
Well,
diary.
let's have a look.
Surely
Let's have
it's
a
in
look.
the
Yeah,
book.
I'm
I mean, this
talking off the top
is
of my
the
head.
thing. Is that
So this is really interesting because this is Operations Dunkirk evacuation of non-combatant units of BEF.
well, they're not fighting anymore.
No.
they are non-combatant.
But this
at
is
this
you can
stage.
if you follow this. So what you've got is you've got series of sentences and little paragraphs all separate. So there is a line spacing between these paragraphs, and this is being added in as it's happening. So you have where the source is. So your 1922 re-hospital ships requirements. No, 2 others have passed me. This is a message from Vimy to Wolfhound 2055 on the 27th. So that is Wolfhound presumably going back again to England.
And so what you'll have is a lot of signals there which are being repeated to the Admiralty in order for them to have a
create a picture of-
overall
yeah.
situational
Yep.
awareness. Absolutely.
Yeah, this is absolutely amazing. I mean, Grafton and Polish destroyer, to a closed beach at Lepan. So they're still closing onto the beach as close as they possibly can. What I can't find is any mention about the discovery of the. But maybe that comes a little bit later.
Well, when these are digitised, you'll be able to put mole
and that's
in as
the
a
idea,
search string,
exactly.
and it'll just you'll go straight to it.
Enemy intelligence. Unusual German wireless telegraphy activity together very wide German meteorological air reconnaissance may indicate an impending operation. So you see that everyone's very, very twitchy about invasions and landings.
Well, which leads me to a question. Is there ultra stuff in here that's received...
No.
How does the ultra picture fit into the war diary?
Because this is only secret, if you're getting ultra, you're not getting it really at this stage of the war.
No. Of course, of course not. But you know.
And then what you get is that I think it's the line in the crawls. Yeah, Admiralty understands.
Right.
So you're getting reliable information, but without attribution.
Right.
Being filtered down,
right,
and even within the Admiralty, there was a very, very tight control.
Yes, of course, but at some point, you know, a thing like that has got to be part of the picture they're trying to create.
Yeah, so you'll get Admiralty understands, usually reliable sources, and then of course, as people were talking earlier on, you will start to get air reconnaissance.
Yeah.
But we know now that
a lot of that's
it was
being
commissioned,
done.
It was inspired in order to provide a plausible reason.
Yeah. Yes, because the last thing you need is a ship's diary captured that's got Admiralty understands. The Germans think, well, how could they possibly know that unless they've...
Which is why the whole thing when the ship goes down is ditching the confidential books.
Yeah.
Books that dissolve and the lead weight, etc.
Yeah.
And Churchill is very aware of this because he knows from the First World War where we captured, I think, by the Russians, some of the early German documents that had helped us into their signals.
Yeah, although the Germans were well into naval signals. Anyway,
absolutely, it's a two-way street.
Did very well for the first couple of years of the war, didn't they? Mainly out of Norway and.
Which is one of the other reasons why the security, even if it meant you missed some opportunity, was so important.
Yeah.
Was our security was sufficient even when the Germans were inside many of our signal circuits. There were not the clues there, the breadcrumbs that would have made them think, hang on a minute, they must be listening in on us.
And eventually. We're using what we know they know. To use our busted systems to direct the Germans to where we wanted them to go.
Yeah.
And you get that by 1943. You get ultra being used, sort of. It's a shadow game, isn't it? But,
yes. But the sort of baiting almost.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly. Yes. You're directing U-boats to where you want them destroyed. Which I think is. Sort of much more interesting. We know what they're going to do next, which is the popular conception of what's going on with Ultra. Yeah. You know, is that we know what they know is more important in a way.
Yeah.
Or we know what they know about us is the
and it's the assurance that it's giving commanders as they go forward.
Exactly.
You know, that they are carefully calibrating their risks. Actually, they've already loaded the dice in their favour.
Yeah. How are you getting on, Jim?
Yeah, no, this is great because what we're getting is we're getting messages. We're getting messages. So first of all, to go back at the very beginning of the 27th, you've got the situation report. And during the night, 26th, 27th, 3,800 troops of the BEF were embarked in small craft from the beaches of Dunkirk. A further 15,000 were to have been evacuated during the night of the 27th, 28th, but the situation deteriorated rapidly during the day. An evacuation continued under machine gun fire and air attack, about 10,300 more men being evacuated during the day. Well, as we know, there weren't. There was 7,669. Anyway, what you're getting is this sense of real... We're up the creek with very few paddles here. And then a little bit further on, it goes back to operations. This is page 604. And it's recording messages as they're coming in. And the key ones I'm looking out for here are SNO. See, it's Senior Naval Officer Dunkirk, who is Bill Tennant. So this is a guy who's arrived on Wolf Hand. And... it's just absolutely fascinating. Arrived Dunkirk with, party via Zuidcote Pass, 4-hour passage. Much dive bombing, only minor damage. Dunkirk burning fiercely. Further report after landing. So that's him at 17:35. And we know he's just coming to port at that point. Then the next one is Please send every available craft east of Dunkirk immediately. Evacuation tomorrow night is problematical. So they're thinking,
how much we're going to get.
this is S&O Dunkirk, 1958. The next one is at 8:05. Port continually bombed all day and on fire. Embarkation possible only from beaches east of harbour. Send all ships and passenger ships there to anchor. I'm ordering Wolfhound to load there and sail. The next one is from Wolfhound, which is 9 o'clock. Wolfhound and Wolsey are evacuated from dawn. But then it doesn't. Where's the next one? Because I'm looking for the comment from him saying we might have a glimmer. But you get this real sense, don't you? I mean, this is the point. Is that immediacy that we're
and so what you'll
honestly, I'm really into this at the moment. I'm into this whole idea. I mean, with the casino book I'm working on at the moment, I'm going to try and use contemporary documents and diaries and letters rather than. I mean, I will use post-war oral histories and things, but as little as possible. I want to keep it as much in the moment as I absolutely possibly can. Yeah. And I think that's what you get from something like this. It is history as it is playing out, which is just, you sense the desperation coming off these pages, don't you? And why wouldn't you be desperate going into? I mean, if you're Bill Tennant and you've gone to the Admiralty, you're working at the Admiralty. And it says, "Oh, Bill, there you are. Good on you, chap. I need you to go down to Dover, get onto Wolfhound, go to Dunkirk. You're going to be S&O." Very well, sir. Thank you very much. You just must be thinking, "Yikes, aren't you?" I mean, and you get there, you're a captain. Which is what's that? Is that a colonel?
It's a colonel.
So a full colonel.
It's a full colonel. Okay, but that's not a massively high rank, is it?
Well, I think, as you've said,
no offense, Steve,
he had
obviously.
to almost pretty much create the S&O thing on his helmet.
Yes,
to try and give him more authority.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
And the other thing you will find, of course, in the diary is there are lots of errors and mistakes, some of which are corrected in pen, but we're not going to try and do any further correction rather than what they were doing.
Well, because it's what they know at the time.
Because this is the primary source.
Yeah.
And we're also going to have next to it a sort of bibliographical essay.
Yeah.
So that people can think, right, if I'm really interested now in the sinking of Bismarck, here are the books that I can go and follow up on.
Yeah, I mean, what is amazing is while Dynamo is still going on, there's all this other stuff. Oh, hold on, here we are. So there's still these messages coming in from S&O. That's one I'm interested in. S&O Dunkirk to report every hour the number of men to be embarked from Dunkirk. If the older class destroyers and other vessels cannot compete with the situation, destroyers of all classes are to be used bringing the men off. DC 0754 28th to VA Dover. DC...
Deputy Commander?
I'm not, obviously, Vice Admiral Dover.
Yeah.
No, don't know DC off the top
Dover,
of my
I mean,
head.
that is, of course, Ramsey, isn't
Yes,
it?
that's Ramsey.
As we know.
And what is plain is during the Dunkirk evacuation, there is a lot of debate between the senior naval officers about the allocation of destroyers.
Yeah.
One, because they're key, but also if you lose them, that's really going to be one of the difficulties carrying on afterwards.
Yeah. Because you think you've got a submarine war to fight.
Or the possibility of invasion at this stage if most of the BAF doesn't get off, and you're into really congested, heavily mined waters.
Yeah.
Yeah, senior officers at beach to use discretion in ordering withdrawal. Strong fighter protection expected after dawn. NOIC Dover to Calcutta, etc. Request air protection for embarkation now. S&O Dunkirk to Vice Admiral Dover at 04:30 on the 28th of May, because of course it'd be light then.
Yes.
Because of double.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
No, actually, it might not be because of double summertime, would it? Should
But when he's asking, he's going to...
Yeah. I'm trying to find another SNO. Fill up Calcutta with military and sail her for Sheerness. Fair enough.
So Calcutta's a cruiser, I think an anti-aircraft cruiser.
Yeah. On a Dunkirk beach, 7,000 men on a something dune for which I have no boats available. They are now in need of water which Army cannot supply. Unlimited numbers are falling back on this area, and the situation in present circumstances will shortly become desperate. I'm doing my best to keep you informed, but shall be unable to report for hours. SNO Dunkirk 093528.
I mean, that is...
I'm surprised he's not...
I mean, the only thing missing off the end of half of these messages is God save the king, isn't it?
Yeah. It's absolutely incredible. And of course, there's all the stuff on Norway and the West Indies and Mediterranean.
And that's the thing in the Admiralty, you've got to balance off,
Yeah.
a global set of activity.
Yeah. Right. So that's Dynamo. Yes. What else have we got? You've got one.
Well, I've opened there.
Yeah.
So you've got there a secret signal from May 41 back to the Admiralty.
From HMS Prince of Wales, Naval Cipher A by wireless telegraph. Okay. Immediate. Your 2317B25. Following brief account has been compiled from preliminary examination of records. Further scrutiny may disclose some minor inaccuracies. At 0535-24, HMS Hood and HMS Prince of Wales, in close order, course 240 degrees, 28 knots, sighted enemy hull down on similar course bearing 335 degrees. Bismarck, astern, lighter ship. Within gun range, turns brought enemy vessels. Question mark 241 degrees. HMS Hood ordered GIC and indicated lost left-hand ship, make 70 OBI, just before opening fire at 0553. Range approximately 25,000 yards. So this is
it.
This is the Bismarck action, yes.
HMS Prince of Wales opened fire at 0553 and a half. So in other words, the guns go off. Oh, right. Oh, yeah, we'll start firing too. German battleship Bismarck replied with extreme accuracy on HMS Hood. Second or third salvos straddled and fire broke out at HMS Hood in the vicinity of port after 4-inch gun mounting. Lighter ship engaged HMS Prince of Wales. HMS Prince of Wales's opening salvo at Bismarck observed over. Sixth seen to straddle. At this time, HMS Prince of Wales had 3 14-inch guns in action. Y turret would not bear. Fire in HMS Hood spread rapidly to main mast. A turn of 2 blue opened an arc at HMS Prince of Wales' 9th salvo, and HMS Hood had a further 2 blue flying. What's blue flying?
You've got me there again. This is terrible. I need to.
Well, no, because we're sort of under the hood here, aren't we?
Yes.
A further 2 blue flying when she was straddled again.
I trust my wife.
And at 0600, a huge explosion occurred between after funnel and main mast. She sank in 3 to 4 minutes. CO HMS Prince of Wales saw whole incident.
I mean, 3 to 4 minutes. That's just going straight down, isn't it?
Yeah. That's breaking up and going right down. HMS Hood had fired 5 or 6 salvos, but fall of shots was not seen, possibly because of progress coinciding with firing at HMS Prince of Wales guns. HMS Prince of Wales' starboard 5.25-inch battery was now in action. Course had to be altered to starboard to avoid remains of HMS Hood. Meanwhile, Bismarck shifted main and secondary argument fire quickly and accurately to HMS Prince of Wales. A heavy hit was felt almost immediately. An 0602 compass platform was hit, and majority of personnel killed. Navigation officer was wounded, CO unhurt. God, good Lord. Some salvo put both forward 5.25 directors out of action. Considered expedient to break off action and consolidate position, and ship, after being manoeuvred round remains of HMS Hood, turned away behind a smoke screen. Y turret fired in local. During turn, a smoke blanked after direction. Enemy followed but turned away after a few salvos. HMS Prince of Wales fired 18 main armament salvos and 3 from secondary armament. Target was crossed and recrossed and 3 straddles observed. No hits seen. Gosh. So that's in 37 minutes or something.
Yeah, it's a pretty intensive action.
It's 0535 to 0602. That's a very intense.
And only 3 survivors from Hood.
Yeah.
Yep. How many survivors from Bismarck?
It's not many in the end. I think 80, 90, something like that. I'll have to check.
And then the next page, Home Command's operations, search for Bismarck and Prince Eugen continued.
It's interesting, they've now identified that she's Prince Eugen rather than lighter ship.
Yeah.
So there, yes, you've got most secret instead of top secret.
From the first Sea Lord to the Naval Mission Washington. Aircraft from Ark Royal made contact. Gosh, so the whole thing.
Oh, there it is it? What does it say about the Bismarck?
I'm getting there. 8. Dawn air torpedo attack by Ark Royal cancelled by bad visibility. Gosh, then more pages of... Here we go. Yes. After most successful torpedo attacks by aircraft from HMS Ark Royal in evening of May 26, which evidently put Bismarck's steering gear out of action. She was shadowed most effectively and attacked with torpedo by 4th DF during the night. HMS King George V and HMS Rodney were manoeuvred to make dawn attack, but uncertain visibility necessitated waiting full light. From 08:48 to 10:20, Bismarck was engaged by both battleships and kept under heavy fire at ranges down to 3,300, repeat 3,300. HMS Norfolk, after flanking, marking, joined in towards the end. Heavily damaged and with no guns left firing, Bismarck finally had to be sunk by HMS Dorsetshire firing torpedoes at close range. No casualties or damage to capital ships or cruisers. A few casualties and slight damage in HMS Cossack and HMS Zulu. One man lost overboard from HMS Seek.
So two very one-sided actions.
Yeah.
Rapidly after each
Yeah.
other.
Gosh. That's the signal saying what's happened. That's not even the War Diary, is it?
That's absolutely sort of
This
hot
is
in from
on
the
pink,
Admiral.
on pink paper. The message in front of
Must
us
be
here.
serious.
Yeah. My goodness. Whereabouts of Prince Eugen unknown, but possible that she will pass southwards through area of US operations. Wow.
And again, interesting US operations, and this is May 41.
Oh yeah, yes, of course. Yeah. There are no US operations. That is absolute. I mean, that's reading the telegram is the dramas right there in the account, isn't it?
Well, again, it's
Complete
moment, isn't it?
immediacy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Gosh. And then
What a trove! It's just incredible.
I mean, truly
isn't it?
amazing.
And the main thing is to get it from a trove to being just available to everybody now.
Well, that's it. From 2 volumes to a thing that's digitally available to people that's a heck of a leap for a sort of piece of information, isn't it?
It is. And it's interesting. It just shows what you can now do,
Yeah.
which is just brilliant because then you've got, so many more people who can access it.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind another deep dive on the Dynamo stuff. I've just getting started.
Well, I'll go do my show and you stay here.
It's absolutely amazing, Steve, isn't it?
Thank you, Steve. Well, what a thing. And we're going to have to come back, I think, and do some more, aren't we, Jim?
Yeah, probably.
Because we've got 5 volumes out of this.
And we didn't even do.
203.
We only did 3.
203, and in the vastest archive of.
And we only did 3 of them. We only looked at 3 of them.
We only did 3 of the. Yeah, I know. There we go. Anyway, thanks everybody for listening. Shivia Timbers. I think we passed. What is it? We spliced the main brace now. Is that what we do?
Yeah, splice the main brace.
Something like
I
that.
think you have to go on first.
Oh, yeah, I do. Yeah. Thanks everybody for listening. Thank you again, Steve. We'll see you all soon. Bye bye.
Cheerio.
Cheers.